when Liverpool beat United 2-0 at Anfield when they win the league that season. Like, that kind of was like, yeah, that's one in the league. And if Martinelli just holds that a little bit, Saka collects, scores past Alisson, that wins them the league. And I spoke about that moment because I spoke about Nketiah against United, which I thought was the most dramatic thing you could possibly get. And then I looked at Reece Nelson against Bournemouth, which was even more dramatic. And that wins them the league. But if Martinelli plays a ball to Saka, who picks it up, who scores, that is probably what wins them the league. Do you know what I mean? Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the 2 Foot Attack podcast. As the camera just starts out of focus, and I'm not gonna start it again. I'm just gonna wait until it comes in focus. And for those who are listening, it literally won't affect you at all. But it's still not focusing, so I'm gonna have to go and alter it myself. Is it gonna focus on my head now? It is. Great. Hello again. We're back. Thank you. Thank you very, very much for coming back or for joining. If this is your first time, then I'm your host, Ari Stamatakos. This is the 2 Foot Attack podcast, episode, 31 of season 2, 32 maybe of season 2. I don't know. I think it's 32. I think it's 32 or 31. But we're getting towards the business end of the season. We are, and this is where football gets really interesting. Club football gets really interesting anyway. And we had some results on the weekend which definitely made such talking points interesting, or such interesting talking points, I should say. But we're back again for another week. I'm going to preface this by saying this one, and I know I am fully aware I say this every single week. This will be a shorter episode because I'm feeling a little bit under the weather. I woke up this morning with a bit of a cold. So, tickly throat, nose in all sorts. So, apologies for that. If I sound a little bit not well, it's because I'm not. So yeah, this will be short because I'm a bit tired. I don't really want to do this, but I enjoy this every single week. I enjoy doing this, and I made a promise to myself that I wouldn't miss a week. I wouldn't miss a scheduled podcast, and I've been doing this for over a year, and there's been a World Cup in between that as well, and I still haven't missed one. So I want to keep that record going for myself. But yes, thank you very much for joining me once again. A lot to speak about. A lot to speak about as we go through the motions once again. Make sure to subscribe to 2 Foot Tackle Podcast as well. Going to get to 400 subscribers. I know we've got 18 days left. We've got just under 3 weeks. Just under 3 weeks. Bit over 2 weeks. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, that would be very much appreciated. Not the end of the world, but it's a good vanity metric once again. So yeah, share it around, do all the good stuff. All the socials, 2 Foot Tackle Podcast on Instagram and TikTok, 2FTPod on Twitter, and all the audio platforms, Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, and Anchor. Rattle them through. That is what we're doing for this. Or that is what this podcast is doing. So yeah, so let's kick things off. And I want to wrap this up quite quickly, actually, because I don't feel all that great. But I promise to deliver a podcast every week, as always. So I think it's episode 31. Anyway, who knows? All right, yeah. So a couple of things to speak about. We're going to speak, of course, about the Arsenal-Liverpool game, which was interesting. We're going to speak about Lampard. I was very tempted to do an emergency podcast. Very tempted, but I wasn't. And I haven't. Touch on Leicester and what's going on with them a little bit. Touch on VAR because that was a big talking point. And then touch on some A-League chat before we preview the week in which Champions League is back. So, yeah, good stuff. Let's kick things off with the game, or the talking point in the title. The talking point in the title that may decide the title. There you go. It is, of course, Liverpool 2, Arsenal 2. A game that, whilst potentially doesn't inherently and objectively, in a sense, decide the title, could potentially be a big talking point and a big factor in basically going through which side, or maybe giving the one hand to the trophy, in a sense, or one handle to the trophy of the team, and that team, of course, was Manchester City. Because of this result, if what I've just said makes sense, Liverpool's 2-2 draw, or Arsenal's 2-2 draw away at Anfield has put them in a very tricky situation, because from what I remember, they currently sit 6 points clear. They sit 6 points clear. Manchester City have a game in hand. You'd think they'd win that. That goes back down to 3 points. And when Arsenal go to the Etihad on Thursday the 27th of April, Australia time, 5 a.m., that game potentially decides the title. Because if we're looking at goal difference, it's really tight. It's 5. It's Man City have a +5 goal difference on Arsenal. If they win their game in hand, and if they go to the Etihad, or if they host Arsenal, if they host Arsenal and win, it's even on points and they'll be ahead on goal difference. And we'll be looking back at this game at Anfield and be thinking, what could have been? Because Arsenal started the game like an absolute house on fire. It was a demolition job from early on anyway. It was really just blistering football. And they got their just deserves very early on with Gabriel Martinelli scoring the first in the 8th minute. Just a typical Arsenal game. High tempo, high octane, attacking, aggressive, looking to break lines, looking to bully and intimidate. Looking to bully and intimidate Liverpool at any opportunity. And that pace up front with Saka, Jesus and Martinelli and Odegaard as well to a bit of an extent just proved to be too much. It was a little bit of a scramble. Martinelli gets a toe on it, flicks it past Alisson and scores Arsenal's first. 8 minutes in, and you're thinking this could be 3 or 4, potentially even 5, because of how well Arsenal were playing, and that sentiment kind of doubled when Gabriel Jesus scores 20 minutes later, and he found himself in a pocket of space. In which not a lot of people would think that he'd find himself in, and the Liverpool defence would be very disappointed that he actually found himself in that space, and headed into the far corner. 2-0, 28 minutes gone. Anfield stunned. It's almost a moment in time where it's like, right, okay, this is it. This could be it, because Arsenal's run home, while it's not overly difficult, they've got West Ham away, which it's not the early kickoff, but they've got West Ham away, apologies, and that, despite West Ham's very underwhelming performances this season and potential to go down, potential banana skin on that game as well. I know West Ham are battling relegation. They need a win. Potential banana skin there. They host Southampton, which should be a comfortable win. Then, of course, they go away to Man City. They host Chelsea, which will be tough. They go away to Newcastle, which is tough. Very tough. Then they host Brighton, go away to Forest, and then host Wolves to end the season. That is, whilst not easy, not difficult at all. And this game, when they go 2-0 up, they potentially, I don't know what they do, but it's a little bit of a moment in time, I think. It's a little bit of a moment in time where you can sit back and think, it's a moment in time where you can sit back and think, okay, this could be it. This could be it, because the one thing Arsenal needed to do, and the one thing that they did superbly in that game, was take the crowd out of it. Well, they did it superbly until I mention the next point. They took the crowd out of the game. This was obviously a very, very emotional game for a lot of Liverpool fans. Of course, they had the minute silence pre-game for the Justice for 97. Obviously, the horrendous scenes that happened at Hillsborough. The story is very well known, but it is a very emotional day for a lot of Liverpool supporters, for all Liverpool supporters, I'd say. And it was a game which was almost set up for Liverpool to come to host the league leaders and tear them a new one. It kind of was set up for that, and Arsenal were like, no, this is not the script. And they wrote their own script, and half an hour in, when they're 2-0 up and have taken all emotion, all sting, all kind of attachment to the game attachment to the game from Liverpool out of it, it put them in a position where it's like, all right, we can just kind of ease off this now, because Liverpool didn't look like doing anything. Liverpool did not look like doing anything. They looked void of ideas. They looked lackluster in the final third. They looked flaccid at times. They didn't look like they had any penetration. They didn't look like they were willing to kind of go beyond kind of their maximum and push that extra 5% for that ball or for that 50-50. They were just kind of going through the motions. And against an Arsenal side that was up for it in the way that they were, you're going to get taught a lesson. And they did for the first half an hour. Until something changed. No one, like, just something changed. And I don't necessarily know what it was, but they go 2-0 up, Arsenal go 2-0 up, and they're kind of cruising until you give a player like Mohamed Salah a pocket of space. And you just can't afford to do that. Right? And you can't afford to let a team like Liverpool you can't give them you can't give them an inch, because they'll take a mile, right? And that is what that goal and kind of that game happened. That is what happened in that game. Arsenal dominating, were well and truly in front, well and truly cruising. They gave Liverpool an inch. They took it, and all of a sudden it's game on. And all of a sudden the energy's back at Anfield. Xhaka and Alexander-Arnold are getting into a little bit of a spat, and all of a sudden it's 2-1. They've got all the momentum. We're in a bit of strife here, and that is how quickly football games can turn, and that is how quickly kind of you can. That is how quickly you can go from being favourites to go to being underdogs and go to having your backs against the wall. Because I say 2-0 is the most dangerous scoreline in football. I wouldn't necessarily subscribe to that theory, but I understand where it's coming from, where it's a very misleading scoreline. 2-0 is a very misleading scoreline, because you can be like, oh, 2 goals, we've got a 2-goal buffer, we're cruising. All of a sudden, they get a penalty, they score a goal from a corner, a defensive mistake, all of a sudden it's 2-1. And you've got 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes to defend a goal where the other team has momentum, because they've got the confidence of just scoring the goal not long before. Very misleading scoreline. I think Arsenal got stuck in that trap a little bit and got a little bit complacent. And then when halftime comes and goes, it's well and truly, we all know the kind of the storyline and the narrative around the game, and that is Arsenal holding on for dear life and just praying to God that Liverpool can't break them down. Of course, halftime comes, that weird thing at halftime where the linesman elbows Andrew Robertson in the head. That was bizarre. That is one of the more bizarre things I've ever seen in a football game. Not even in the 90 minutes, just generally. That is like truly bizarre, because Robertson goes up to the lino, and you would have seen it if you had watched the game, you would have seen it. But if you've gone on Twitter, right, or any social media, Robertson goes up to the lino, has a few words, and then the lino gives like an kind of like an upward uppercut elbow to the jaw, and Robertson is like, what the... The footage is actually hilarious, right? Because you can see Robertson stand there with his hand on his chin. Like, that didn't just happen, right? There's no way that just happened. How like, I don't know what the repercussions could be for that. And funnily enough, the lino's Greek, which is quite funny. I find that funny because I'm half Greek, but that's it. That's all. Yeah, that was one of the truly bizarre things I've ever seen. He just elbowed him in the head, and Robertson gets a yellow card, which surely VAR has... I mean, we'll touch on VAR a little bit later on, but surely VAR can look at it and be like, what did Robertson get a yellow for? And just be like, yeah, rescind that. Because it's not like disrupting the flow of the game. So it's like, who cares? Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's during halftime, just come out before the second half starts, show the yellow, and then wave it off and then play. I don't understand why VAR can't do that. In obviously circumstances like that. But yeah, that is... Anyway, that was bizarre. The second half comes and goes by quite quickly, especially the first half. Probably up until the hour mark. Arsenal... It was very early on. It was very early as to what was going to happen. Arsenal were going to be holding off for dear life. Just backs against the wall. backs against the wall, pushing up, like just pushing back against Liverpool, and Liverpool obviously being the team in possession and for the most part and really dominating. If we can bring up the stats for that second half, that would be interesting to look at. If we can... Yeah, so the second half, Liverpool had 66% possession, had a 2.8 expected goals, and we'll touch on a potential reason for that. 13 shots, 5 on target, 5 big chances, 4 of them missed. They were creating chances in abundance, and they were really dominating for them. They were really dominating, really dominating. And their moment kind of came, their key moment came, what was it? It would have been, 50th-ish minute, maybe 52nd minute, 53rd minute, where Mohamed Salah gets a penalty. And whether it was a dodgy penalty or not, I don't know. I probably, from what I can remember, I haven't actually watched it back. From what I remember, I would be it's very down the line, very borderline, very line ball. I would probably lean towards no, because if I'm remembering it correctly, the contact wasn't exactly overly malicious or there. But anyway, regardless, the ref gives it, and the moment falls to Salah, and if Salah scores this penalty, the game's over. Liverpool win the game. I'm convinced. He steps up and he drags it wide, across his body. Like, not across his body. When he opens his hips up and hits it wide. Normally, you see Salah go for power, whether that's in the corner or down the middle. You see him put his foot through it, so he tried a little bit more of a finesse style penalty, puts it wide, and it kind of... Does it change the dynamics of the game a little bit? Let me know what you think in the comments below. I feel like it did to an extent. I feel like it did change the dynamics of the game to a little bit of an extent, because that almost felt like Liverpool's moment. It almost felt like, that was Liverpool's moment to get back into the game. They score this 2-2, Liverpool have the momentum, Arsenal clinging on for a point. But it kind of changed the dynamics of, maybe like Liverpool are now desperate for a point, if that makes sense. So it put the onus on Liverpool to score rather than the onus on Arsenal to defend, because they defended, in a sense, Liverpool's best shot. In a way, that Liverpool had their chance. Liverpool had their chance and they blew it. So the onus goes on them to be like, all right, you had your chance and you blew it, create another one. And whereas Arsenal were like, all right, let's just hold on, because it's like, how often does Mohamed Salah miss a penalty, right? Anyway, game continues. Some subs are made. Trossard comes on. To try and level things up, or not level things up, but to try and balance things out in the middle of the ground, because they weren't really getting a whole lot. Obviously, they brought Jesus off, so that probably allowed them to maybe play 2 number 10s in a sense. But it was a weird game. It was a weird game because it felt like it was inevitable that Liverpool were going to score, but it also felt like Arsenal were going to win. Like, that's how I felt anyway. I always felt that Arsenal were... I didn't feel like Arsenal were in any danger, but I felt like Liverpool were going to score, which is weird because obviously that's a complete contradiction inherently, right? But I digress. Back into the game, Arsenal clinging on for dear life. Trent Alexander-Arnold with a brilliant nutmeg on someone. Can't remember who it was. It might have been Saka. And the ball gets clipped into the back post. Roberto Firmino's there. Roberto Firmino scores 1-1, 2-2, 82nd minute, or 87th minute, 89th minute? Yeah, 87th minute. And then from there, it's frantic. And I'm going to quickly pause because my door's just opened for some reason, so I'm going to quickly close that so no noise gets in, and that'll be 2 seconds, which won't really matter for anyone here, because like we've said countless times, there is no real breaks on this podcast. There's a break for me, so bear with me for una momento. Okay, I'm back. Door shut. Let's move on. So the final 7 minutes or so, very tight, very tense, and I think it's typified by a couple of moments. If I'm not mistaken, these moments were simultaneous, or not simultaneous, but back to back of each other. The Kanate miss on the goal line slash the Ramsdale save. I know you can probably attribute it to being a Ramsdale save more than a Kanate miss. That was weird. Like that kind of typified the game because he was like, surely he's gonna score. Oh, he didn't. Right? Like it typified the game in that sense because it kind of felt right. Like it felt as if, of course, he was like, you expect him to score, obviously, but when he doesn't score, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like in the narrative of the game, that makes sense. Obviously, Ramsdale saving Arsenal again. Countless times he's done that. He's really, really good. A fantastic signing as well. Like, considering what people labelled him as, great signing. Anyway, and then I'm pretty sure that's where they clear the ball, and then the ball goes wide to Martinelli, who has the pass to Saka to play him through and to pretty much win the game for them. And he overhits it ever so slightly. Alisson comes out, clears it. And Liverpool rebound, and then etc. The game kind of not fizzles out, but the game kind of just goes along, goes through its motions and ends. But that Martinelli moment, I speak about moments a lot. I feel like moments win flags or flags. I say that because there's my footy brain. Moments win titles. Moments and moments and kind of bits of skill win titles. And the reason I say that is because think about title wins in the past. For the most part, it's moments that are like, yeah, that's one in the league. Obviously Aguero, even like obviously Aguero, right? The number one, Gundogan last year, that goal in the last minute, or not last minute, but the 3 goals in 5 minutes for City, that obviously wins them it. You look at moments throughout the year where it's like it doesn't have to be like to clinch the title, but to just be like, yeah, like they're gonna win it. Like when Liverpool beat United 2-0 at Anfield when they win the league that season, like that kind of was like, yeah, that's one in the league. And if Martinelli just holds that a little bit, Saka collects, scores past Alisson, that wins them the league. And I spoke about that moment because I spoke about Nketiah against United, which I thought was the most dramatic thing you could possibly get. And then I looked at Reece Nelson against Bournemouth, which was even more dramatic. And that wins them the league. But if Martinelli plays a ball to Saka, who picks it up, who scores, that is probably what wins them the league. Do you know what I mean? And it kind of levels up in dramatic moments. It levels up in dramatic moments, and you can't get less dramatic. You can only get more dramatic. And if it wasn't this moment, if it wasn't this moment, I am extremely, extremely intrigued to see what moment comes out of Man City versus Arsenal on the 27th of April. Because that game is going to have a moment that wins the league for either team. And because it's set up for it. It is set up for that. You can only build... You can build tactic, structure, personnel, whatever. It comes down to moments. And it comes down to a moment. And that game is going to have a moment that's going to win either team the league. And it wouldn't be the case. It wouldn't be the case if Martinelli had held that pass a little bit lighter. Saka picks it up and scores. Because this moment probably wins Arsenal the league. Just like I thought the Reece Nelson moment won Arsenal the league. And just like I thought the Nketiah goal against United won Arsenal the league. So it builds until you reach a climax. We've reached the ultimate climax a couple of times, the Aguero moment, and of course even last year with the Gundogan goal for City, 3 goals in 5 minutes, like I said. I feel like this season is going to have another moment. And when it's not this moment, it only builds the drama for the next moment. And it's going to come. It's going to come in that game when both sides face each other, and it's going to be like memorable, guaranteed. You can quote me on that. But yeah, game ends 2-2. Arsenal see 6 points clear in a game in a season where it's 6 points, but it feels like it's 1 point. It's so tight. Any team can beat anyone. Arsenal aren't safe yet. City aren't safe yet either. And as the dogs next door are going absolutely ballistic, that's 100% coming through on the mic as well. 100% coming through. As I mute myself very quickly accidentally. That's 100% coming through on the mic. But regardless, it's one of those things. It's one of those things where you can only sit and wait about what moment's going to come next, and what moment is going to typify and encapsulate this season. I dread to think about the potential ramifications of a moment that goes sour. What I mean by that is Steven Gerrard slipping, something like that, because that moment typified that season. So I dread to think. We can't really complain as Premier League fans because of what last year did for us in terms of drama for the league. It was unbelievable. But this year's going to be great. This final day, I want it to go. Everyone wants it to go down to the final day. Everyone wants it to go down to the final day. It will be sick. And I spoke last year about the final day. The title on the podcast title is just the greatest final day in Premier League history or something like that. The greatest day in Premier League history or whatever, because you had league top 4 relegation. Maybe not top 4. Well, the league should be in the balance. Top 4 potentially if Spurs can kick themselves into gear, and even Liverpool if they can kick themselves into gear. And relegation, I mean, there's 12 teams who can go down still, right? So that's well and truly within the realms of possibility. So I guess we just have to wait and see. I guess we just have to wait and see on that regard, or in that behalf, I should say. But there's another point I wanted to make. Oh yeah, the league in general. Surely Arsenal can't slip up from here, right? Surely like that game at the Etihad is going to be massive. I'm gonna have to get up and watch that game. 100%. There's no way I'm not watching that game. That game decides the league. But does it decide the league? Unless it's a draw. If it's a draw, Jesus Christ. If it's a draw like what City and Liverpool had last year, then fuck me. Because that would be insane. But I'm pretty sure it was last year, that 2-2 draw at the Etihad. Yeah, it was. I'm not going insane. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's time. I think it is time we move on. I just want to quickly double check that I'm not going insane when I say that. It was that draw, was it? Yeah, they drew 2-2 at the Etihad. Almost, is it to the day? Ooh, yesterday or tomorrow. It was to the day. Anyway. So yeah, there you go. Let's move on. Title race chat is fun, but I guess we just have to wait. It can sit and wait for another week, I think. Let's move on and let's get through these talking points in a relatively rapid fire fashion. Lampard is in. That's funny. That is so funny. I woke up to the news because it kind of came overnight. Like I went to bed not really knowing anything. Woke up and just saw Lampard was coach. I was like, sweet. Quick thoughts. I was going to do an emergency podcast, but I kind of looked back and I was like, yeah, that doesn't really deserve it. If he was permanent coach, then probably. But he isn't, so I don't reckon it deserves it. But just quick thoughts, and then we'll move on to the game and elaborate further. I think it's great. It's for 10 games. The Champions League isn't a competition right now that we were expected to win anyway, especially considering who we're versing, of course, Madrid. So it's like there's no jeopardy. Just bring him in, let him have fun, let him coach, let him get back into the swing of coaching. Maybe he can do something special in Europe. Who knows? maybe he could have won all of his remaining Premier League games and snuck us into the top four or whatever. But no, I like it. I think it's okay for 10 games. It is what it is, and yeah, I don't really think that you can be I don't really think you can be up in arms about it, because I don't think Nagelsmann was going to take the job right now, and I don't think it's smart to take a job right now. I think just wait till the off season, have a fresh start, fresh transfer window, fresh everything, just reset and then go again. 10 games left into the season when you've got a cup run in between. Probably not the best time. Yeah, just get an interim in, get an interim that loves the club, knows the players for the most part, will do everything in his power to get the boys up and firing, and to get the boys playing good football. And yeah, don't see an issue with it in the slightest. I love it so much. And if he wins the Champions League, you have to keep him on. That's the thing I saw on Twitter. If this is why I just said that, because if Frank Lampard wins the Champions League with Chelsea, do you have to keep him? I feel like you do. I genuinely feel like you have to keep him, because he's a Champions League winning coach. Like, surely you can't not hire him. Would it be the first time that an interim coach has won the Champions League? Because I certainly can't think of another time. And like, or was Di Matteo an interim? I think Di Matteo got the job. I think Di Matteo got the job officially. I don't know when this happened. And the poster's slowly falling off the wall as well. So for those watching on YouTube, you can see there. For those listening on audio, you probably don't give a shit. But yeah, was Di Matteo an interim, or did he get the job, or did he get the job afterwards? I don't know. Regardless, do you have to keep him on? I think if you ask Chelsea supporters, they would say they'd rather win the Champions League and he stays on as permanent coach than him not win the Champions League and him leave. Because at the end of the day, it's a European trophy, so you can't really knock that. You can't really knock that in the slightest. So it is quite funny. It is quite funny how things worked out, and I do enjoy it a lot. However, his first game left a lot to be desired. Yeah, just poor. Not good enough, really. Not good enough. 1-0 loss away at Wolves. Cracking goal by Matthias Nunes. Like, Jesus. That is a freakish goal. Like, a freakish goal. He's took that on the half volley across his body. That is a freakishly good goal. Like, a freakishly good goal. So fair play to him. Like, fair play. And I don't think any keeper in the world is stopping that. So you can't be blaming Kepa for that. But yeah, bit of a weird system, bit of a weird kind of structure, but who cares? Attention goes to the Champions League, and if he gets a result, are we at the Bernabeu in the first leg? I think we are. We play on Thursday. I think we are at the Bernabeu. If I quickly check. Yeah, if he gets a result at the Bernabeu, if he brings Real Madrid back to the bridge with a 2-1 lead, or a 1-0, or even a 1-0 loss, gee, I'm confident. I am confident. And that's going to go into my predictions a little bit later on. But yeah, that's yeah, it's quite funny. How the time Chelsea have won the Champions League, it's come from an interim. It's come when they sacked the manager halfway through the season, and I don't know what the stats are for sacking two managers throughout the season, but yeah, there you go. Chelsea have had 3 managers this season. Jesus Christ, that is quite something. That is quite something. But regardless, let's move on. Like I said, I want to get this done. So let's speak about Leicester a little bit, because Jesse Marsch was linked. However, I've just seen now that Fabrizio Romano has said that the deal's fallen apart. So I don't know what they're going to do, because they lost, and by all accounts they were shit. So I don't know what they're going to do. I said not long ago that Leicester could go down. There is a podcast that is titled "Why Leicester Could Get Relegated." I'm not saying anything, but listen. And also, furthermore, when I speak, listen. This is I completely forgot to mention this, but as people who would know me, I invest heavily in a stock called Sportsbet. It's investing, and a lot of people have been making fun of me for my not so great betting ability. But I just want to bring this up right here. That's going to focus. Please focus. It's focusing. So if we can just look at this, if we could just look at that and all its glory. Yeah, that's for those who aren't watching on YouTube. That is a 3-leg multi on the Leeds versus Crystal Palace game. That is Joel Ward to be booked, tick, as my phone nearly goes flat. Joel Ward to be booked, ticked. Over 2.5 goals, tick. And Eberiche Eze to score as the how's the camera there? How's the camera work there? And Eberiche Eze to score. All three of those got up. All three of those got up relatively early on in the game as well. And I won $500. So to anyone who doubted me, when I speak, listen. When I speak, just listen, right? And gamble responsibly, of course. But there you go. That's just a quick self-indulging about my unbelievable gambling ability. But once again, gamble responsibly, over 18, all that good stuff. Don't want to be liable for anyone. But let's wrap things up. Let's wrap things up by speaking about VAR. And I don't want to speak about VAR. I hate speaking about VAR. I really, really despise it because who wants to speak about VAR? But where are we at now? What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing now with it? What's going on? Because this isn't the first time. It's not the last time that stupid decisions are being made, but are being upheld by VAR. VAR is meant to be this tool that people can use, or that people use to eliminate human error from the game. That is what, in design, it's meant to do. To eliminate human error from the game. What it does is it just adds more human error to the game. Because we saw again on the weekend with Brighton. It's just more human error. Because it takes one error to not give the decision in the first place. And it takes another error to not reverse the decision in the second place. So you're just doubling the human error. It is absurd. It is genuinely absurd. And Brighton were robbed. Brighton were well and truly robbed on the weekend. They should feel well, if whatever they're feeling right now, they have well and truly deserved to feel that way, because that is ridiculous, truly ridiculous. Not the first time we've seen it this season. It won't be the last time. It won't be the last time we're going to be speaking about this, even in heavier detail when it happens again, because I don't like it. I think it's ruined the game. I think it has changed fundamentally. It has changed the fabric of football in a way that I think hampers it a lot more than what it does benefit it. So I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. It's here now. It's here to stay. The only way we can stop speaking about it is by improving it. And it's been 5 years, and if anything, it's regressed. If anything, in 5 years since it's been implemented, it's regressed, which says a lot. Which really does say a lot, because what are we doing here? What are we doing? It's changed football for the worse. In a big way. Just briefly on that, because I can't be bothered, and it's gonna break me. It's gonna break me speaking about that. It's gonna break me. Let's finish things up with our SMA League chat. Like I said, short episode. I'm really under the weather, as you could probably tell. I'm quite ill. So let's wrap things up. I love it how my podcasts fluctuate from an hour and a half length to 45 minutes. So this is literally half my length of my podcast from one of my other ones. There was the one that I did a couple of weeks ago. What was it? An hour and a half, yeah. Who should the top 6 Premier League clubs sign this season? This January transfer window. An hour and 35 minutes. This will be lucky to hit 50. There you go. I'm just incredibly ill. My apologies. My sincere apologies. But anyway, let's finish things up. Let's speak about the A-League. And I want to speak about two things which kind of kind of combined to make 1 point. Firstly, the Amy Park debacle over the weekend. It was just a shit show. For those who don't know, or for those who didn't see, for those who didn't watch the Victory or the City games, the surface at Amy Park was horrendous, just stupidly bad. And I want to speak more specifically about the Victory game because I watched it and etc. But like, how can that? And the reason why I want to speak about it is because when you look at Friday night, when you had a sold out Cooper Stadium in a game between Adelaide United and Sydney FC, big game, big crowd, perfect advertisement for the league. How can you have in a matter of days 5,000 people rocking how can you go from having a packed out Cooper Stadium between two pretty good clubs in the league who play good football for the most part, where it's almost like a perfect advertisement for the league. Everything about that game just seemed idyllic, right? From an external perspective. How can you go from that to the next day or 2 days or in if I could speak, that'd be great. How can you go from that to, in a matter of days, go to 5,000 people rocking up to Amy Park between two clubs at the bottom of the ladder who play horrendous football, playing on a cow paddock that's meant to be one of the better grounds in the country, with rugby league lines and just shocking. Everything about that spectacle was horrible. How can that be a thing? How can the gap between the best and the worst of the league be so drastic? And it gives me mixed feelings because on one hand, it makes me think, fuck, if this is what the A-League is at its best, then gee, we've got a good league in the making, right? The potential for this league is unbelievable. If we can hit what we did on Friday night with Adelaide United and what happened at that game and everything around it, if that can be the norm, then gee, we've got a good league on our hands. But in the same vein, I look at the Victory game and I think, fuck, if that's our worst, Jesus Christ, like that wasn't even the worst. That is like middle of the road, which says a lot. This league's in a really tricky place. This league is in a really, really, really tricky place, and I don't know where it goes. Like, I don't know how they bridge the gap. They need to find a way to bridge the gap, otherwise it's going to become untenable. But on one hand, it goes back to what I just said. On one hand, I look at it and think, gee, the league's in strife. But on the other hand, I look at it and think, gee, the league's doing well. Like, gee, the league still has some promise in some pretty dark times. So it's like there needs to be a clear plan in order to get the best out of this league, and there needs to be a clear way of kind of going about things in order to fix it. Because, well, I'm not even going to get into the final shit show because we're not even there yet. After we get to finals, once we get into finals, I'll speak about that because that's going to be horrendous. But anyway, if we look at the table quickly, City are runaway leaders. They probably aren't going to be caught. And the top six is still pretty much between Perth are still in there thereabouts, Brisbane, Newcastle. Victory is still in there. It's 4 points. Like, I'd be shocked if Victory made it. And they have the best goal difference out of everyone. Victory have the 5th best goal difference in the league, and they sit last, which is insane. But yeah, I think Sydney will do it. I just think they're just. Oh no, I hope Newcastle do it. I think Sydney will do it. I hope Newcastle will do it. But then again, who really knows? Let's finish things up. Let's finish things up with the preview of the week. Yeah, Champions League once again, just no explanation. Benfica Inter 1-0. City Bayern 2-0 Bayern Munich. Napoli versus Milan. I'm going to go with 1. Napoli, yeah. Milan have beaten Napoli 2 times in a row. Napoli 3-1. Madrid Chelsea 1-0. Should we do Europa League as well? Yeah. Final Roma 1-0. Leverkusen versus the Belgian team that I don't know how to pronounce. Leverkusen 2-0. Juventus versus Sporting Juventus 1-0, not Juventus 1-0, just 1-0. And United versus Sevilla, that will be 2-0 United. No, 1-0 United. And then not a lot of good Premier League games either, which is a little bit of a shame. But anyway, that's it. That's enough for this podcast. Thank you very much for watching another episode of TFTPod podcast. I apologize that this is a short episode. I am feeling extremely under the weather. My throat hurts. I feel dizzy. I'm quite under the weather. I apologize. I needed to get this out though. I wanted to get this out because I wanted to maintain the streak. But yes, hopefully next week I'll be back to full fitness. Hopefully there can be a little bit more things we can speak about. Hopefully we can get a little bit more interesting talking points. But yes, thank you all very much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to TFTPod podcast. It would genuinely mean the world. Genuinely would. So that would be great. That'd be awesome. All the TikToks, all the socials, as the camera goes out of focus. All the socials, Instagram and TikTok, TFTPod podcast, Twitter, 2FTPod. Audio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Anchor. Notification bell, subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Thank you very much for watching another episode. Thank you for sticking around. I apologise that this podcast was a bit shit, but it is what it is. I just needed to get it done. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for sticking around. See you guys next week, and goodbye.